Hey there, everyone. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a safe New Year. As we start off the new year of 2021 and a new semester, we have a lot of fun and life giving events coming up. I'm so excited to see what God has planned for the life of our youth program, all the fourth pres, and especially all of your lives at home. If you would like to stay up to date with all the happenings of the youth at Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Greenville, South Carolina, please email me at chris@fourthpres.com to be added to the weekly Tuesday e-blast. You may also follow us on Instagram at fourthpres. Out of an abundance of caution, we will be doing our first two lessons of the year via YouTube, so we can all remain safe after the holiday season. I hope to see all of your faces in person again soon, and I pray that God is keeping you all safe and healthy. As Martin Luther King Day approaches, I would like for us to reflect on one of his most storied sermons called On Being a Good Neighbor. The sermon spoke to significant truths back during the civil rights era of the 1960s as people of color fought for equality in our nation that promises just that. Reverend King's sermon speaks to a new generation now. As the past year and even days have demonstrated, we as God's people still struggle to see the divinity placed in each of us by God and his steadfast love. This two-part lesson is inspired by the words of the late Reverend King, and I hope it inspires all of us to look at one another and the world more with the insight a Good Samaritan once did, with altruism. Now, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes altruism as an unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of others. And Reverend King breaks altruism down into three parts. One we will cover this week, and the next two we will finish up next week in the second part of this lesson. Those three parts are universal, dangerous, and excessive. And as we will find in the Gospel of Luke, starting in chapter 10, verse 29, that was not so easy for everybody. And to give it some context, one day a man came to Jesus and he wanted to raise some biblical questions. He wanted to trick Jesus, that he knew more than Jesus and throw him off a bit in front of people. He wanted to embarrass Jesus publicly. His question was, who is my neighbor? Now, this could have easily turned into a philosophical or theological debate, but Jesus is too smart. He didn't fall for that trapdoor. Jesus immediately pulled that question from midair and placed it on a curvy, dangerous road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Jesus spoke about a man who had been beaten by thieves. Now, the scripture today is Luke chapter 10, verses 29 through 37, and it reads, So he asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, they beat him, and they went away, leaving him half dead. Now, a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to this place and saw him, passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and he bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, now that was about 2 full days' work back then, and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you may have. When Jesus finished the story, he went on to say, Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in law replied, The one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, Go and do likewise. Now, a priest passed by, but did not stop. Another man passed by, did not stop. But A man of another race than the beaten man decided to stop, administer aid, take him to an inn, and pay for his food and any additional needs that he may have. Jesus said this was the good man, the great man, because he had the capacity to be concerned for the other man, his brother, his neighbor. Now, we can use our imaginations to guess as to why the priest chose not to stop. Let's take a second and think about ourselves and reflect a little bit inwardly and ask, do we ever allow ourselves to come up with far-fetched reasons for why we or others should be let off the hook for choosing to not do what is good? I think we do. And maybe we choose to do that a little bit more than we even realize. We could say that the priest was busy going to a church meeting and just could not be late. Nobody likes to be late. It's awkward. You feel like you're going to get in trouble. There's all this stress. So maybe he was just in a rush. Or that some religious law said that one involved in a religious ceremony could not have contact with a human body 24 hours leading up. Maybe he was going to some Jericho Road Improvement Union organization meeting, and he simply wanted to attack the issue of the dangerous road on a large scale rather than being bogged down by this one measly man. But our imagination tells us something different. Our imagination may tell us that they were afraid. It's a dangerous road. Now, see, this road is some 12,000 miles above sea level. But about 20 minutes down that road, it is only about 2,200 miles below sea level. Now, this road is known as the Bloody Path. Honestly, if you're going to be robbing people, probably a good spot to be doing it. Maybe the priest looked around and wondered if the robbers were still there. Maybe the man on the ground was trying to trick them to rob them himself by luring them into a trap. Reverend King called this a quick and easy seizure. And so the first question that the priest asked, the first question that the Levite asked themselves is, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the first question that the certain man, the good neighbor, the good Samaritan asked himself was, if I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? And that gets us into the first of the three breakdowns of altruism, universal altruism. The Samaritan had a capacity for universal altruism. He had the insight to see beyond race, religion, and nationality. See, one of the greatest mistakes of mankind has been the limits we put on our neighbors because of race and class, because of tribe and nation. This means that one does not really mind what happens to people outside of their group. We put ourselves in boxes, we put ourselves in circles, and we create cliques and tribes, and we do the best for ourselves, which seems right because we're taking care of our own. But we forget about others. We forget that we were all made in the same divinity, the same image as God. Now let's think again. What have been the consequences of this group-centered attitude? Take a moment and reflect. Where have you seen this? At school, in your neighborhood, our country, the whole world? With this attitude, we begin to see those outside of our groups as more of entities than we do as human beings made from the same divine image. I like to use a traffic example for this. Some of you have been driving for a few years now. Some of you are just figuring it out. Maybe it's only been a few weeks, days, or even months. And I know many of you are looking forward to that day that you can hop in the front seat and whip around and have a driver's license, go to school, friend's house, the grocery store, whatever. Many times when we're on the highway, we're going pretty fast, pretty quick. There's a lot of traffic. We see people cut us off, cut off other people. They get in our blind spot. They're going too slow, too fast. We're a little uncomfortable, and our emotions get built up. And we start to see all the cars as just cars. And oftentimes we forget that there's a person or people, a family in that car. We forget how personable that really is, that connection really is. And we forget about the safety and the welfare of those around us. We're more concerned about those in our car, our group. See, the Samaritan saw him as a human first. He saw the beaten man as a human, a child of God, who just happened to be of another religion, who just happened to be Jewish. A good neighbor discerns those inner qualities that make all people human and therefore family and therefore our neighbor. Now, I want us all to take the next few days, the next week, to reflect on this universal altruism that we've been speaking about. You know, people maybe outside of our clique or outside of our friend group or outside of our sports team, outside of our after school like little group that sits here but not over here because that's where they are, you know. Maybe let's reflect on those boundaries and maybe the negative effects that we've had on each other, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, in the comments, I'll provide some talking points, some questions, so you can meditate this on your own or do a devotional on your own, or maybe do like a mini small group away from the church with your family or your friends or whomever, the dog, the cat, your goldfish, Gary, whatever. But take some time before next week. Reflect on this. And remember, we're all neighbors. We're all family. I'll see you next week.